Everyone is speaking out against this. The Boston Celtics unfortunately have lost their previous 4 of 6 games, and some fans inside the fan base have grown frustration with this team and staying healthy and being able to be reliable on 3 point shooting and defense. And a question has been risen around a certain player on this certain team, and it is absolutely shocking. And we're going to be breaking down and discussing what that topic is and ultimately my opinion on it. We'll be diving into all of this and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. Without further ado, let's dive into the video at hand. Make sure to grab a snack. And like I said in the introduction, this is an absolutely wild thing to be breaking down, but Celtics Twitter, Celtics social media has been going absolutely berserk over the last couple of days. And if you're a sane person like me, you've been wanting to try to stay away from it. But honestly, there has been so much news and so much talking about it, you honestly can't get away from it. And there's been so much chatter and so much talking about this Celtics team resulting in these losses. Fans are furious with the lack of defensive effort. Fans are furious that this team has not been able to stay as healthy as it was last season. And some fans are getting questionable on if this team can contend and still be a competitor in the Eastern Conference. And me personally, I believe that regardless of all these injuries, regardless of everything happening with this team, there is nothing to worry about with this Celtics squad. Some fans over on some social media sites have been getting into some weird topics and breaking down some possibilities. And we're going to be diving in and exploring all of that in this episode here. Like I mentioned, Jayson Tatum broke down yesterday talking about the Celtics losing 4 out of their last 6, saying that they're just in a point in the season where they're not happy where we're at. We all have to understand we played a part in where we're going right now, and we just got to be better. And unfortunately for the Celtics, they did lose their last game versus the Indiana Pacers last night, where the Pacers outshot them, played a little bit lack of defense, but the Celtics did beat down that Pacers team, still with these injuries that they were suffering with no Porzingis and no Jrue Holiday on Friday night. So there's nothing to really worry about there. But like I just mentioned, the Celtics have yet to lose 4 of the last 6. The last time they did that, courtesy of Bobby Manick, was in March in 2023, which is a long time for Celtics fans to kind of see this type of losing happening. And it's like I mentioned, Noah Dalzell broke down. Kristaps was out for the game. Jrue Holiday was expected to be out with a shoulder, but ultimately he was ruled out as well. So some people on Celtics Twitter brought up this before the game, and some people dove in it to after the game as well, and they talked about the possibility of trading Kristaps Porziņģis. And if we want to look at Jake Eisenberg's tweet here, he said he's sorry Kristaps Porziņģis, but he went out and got some possible trades here that could help the Boston Celtics. And if you want to look at these listed names, we got Isaiah Stewart, Valanciunas, Robert Williams, Nicholas Claxton, John Collins, Jakob Poeltl, Nikola Vucevic. And before I say this and before I preface this, obviously Jake isn't suggesting that the Celtics move on from Kristaps Porzingis. He's saying he's still not 100% sold on trading him, but they're still proven they can win without him. So any help would only bolster those non-KP title odds, depending how Kristaps has been dealing with this injury. And if we want to look at this as well, he also just found trades that all were for big men and KP salary, but you can easily make the case for not trading KP. And I agree here with Jake. He is just obviously looking at some possibilities, but it arose the question before the game, and could the Celtics possibly look to do a move like this? Like he mentions, the Celtics can win without Kristaps Porzingis, and we've seen that last season and throughout this playoffs. But Kristaps Porzingis this season for the Celtics has not been available that much for the team. He's only played in 11 available games, and in those games, he has been sidelined 3 times while sitting out with injury. He has missed his second game since turning this ankle once again, missing both on Christmas, missing both of these Indiana Pacers game, and this could be something that could still be limiting him, already added to the fact that he already had surgery that led him to the start of the season and dealing with that heel injury that removed him from the game and another injury that removed him from the game. And these type of injuries can pile up on a guy like Kristaps Porzingis and could limit him and limit the Celtics' contention in this championship, as we've seen with Al Horford getting a little bit older, Kristaps Porzingis not being readily available. The Celtics have to rely on other big men like Luke Kornet, Xavier Tillman, Neemias Queta, and they've been able to do their job in some aspects for the Celtics here in majority of the contests. But going deep into the playoffs, these are the bigs that the Celtics have to rely on. Relying on one of these guys to be a starting big for a whole entire playoff series, or necessarily a big backup big is going to be a lot to ask for the Celtics at this very moment. So I do understand the possibility of looking at it, and those trades obviously would not be concrete trades. Those are just trades that it could possibly get done with contract wise. So I don't want to obviously say that he is, proclaiming that they're pushing for this, but it is a possibility to throw out there. And with the Celtics losing last night as well, the conversations were still arisen and talked about as well. If we want to look and dive in more on this, we can look at another tweet courtesy of my guy Owen O'Connor, Joe Mazzulla on Twitter, and he mentioned this, that he's not worried about the Celtics, but he also thinks there's a slight concern with KP that does need to be addressed. He's so good when he's healthy, a top 40-ish player, but the only issue is that you're talked about maybe a total of 30 games this season. I really wouldn't be mad if they moved him at the deadline. So not only or is just Jake talking about this, but Owen as well, and some possibilities of some people in the Celtics fan base growing to this as well. So I want to know your guys' opinions and your guys' kind of thoughts on the possibility of doing a Kristaps Porziņģis trade. Do you think the Boston Celtics should go out and pursue a deal with Kristaps Porziņģis, or do you think the Celtics should obviously keep Kristaps Porziņģis on this team, as you think he is still going to be a viable piece for this team going into the playoffs and still be ready and healthy for this Celtics team? I want to know your thoughts in the comment section, and we're going to get into my verdict here right now, as I think that the Celtics should honestly analyze this situation, but not at this very moment. And if we want to dive in, we want to look at my response to all of this, we can see that I said on Jake's post that I think that this isn't something they explore until the off season if they want to shed salary and feel like they can add someone who can be there in a more consistent manner. As we've seen with Kristaps Porziņģis, it's not obviously the fact that he doesn't have talent. He's one of those top 40-ish players in the NBA, like Owen had mentioned. He's one of the more dominant centers for the Celtics team, has changed the way the Boston Celtics have utilized the big man in the post as a scorer, but also as a rim protector as well. But ultimately, with his injury history throughout his career and what we've seen with the Celtics this season, he might not be back to that full Kristaps Porziņģis that we saw last year. And that was a concern going into this season with Kristaps Porziņģis. And with this team being in the second apron, having long-term deals already extended to Derrick White, Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Jrue Holiday, and Kristaps Porziņģis, this team is relatively going to get expensive in the future, and the Celtics aren't going to want to have those restrictions on draft picks or not being able to sign extensions for being in the second apron for multiple seasons at a time. So the Celtics eventually will look to shed salary, and a player like Kristaps Porziņģis or a player like Jrue Holiday could be the first domino effect to go through. Ultimately, the question is it going to be something that happens this year, or is it something that's going to happen next season? And I personally think that it's not a conversation to have till next year. We see the Celtics right now. I believe they are on, like Jayson Tatum just said, a little bit of a rough patch, and I ultimately do not believe that this is something to completely freak out about, completely to write the walls off, and to kind of just panic at this very moment. Without Kristaps Porziņģis, the Celtics team has been able to succeed and win games throughout the beginning part of the season. They were the first team to beat the undefeated Cavs, the first seed still in the Eastern Conference, without Kristaps Porziņģis, and I feel confident with this Celtics team that with or without Kristaps Porziņģis this season, they are the best team in the Eastern Conference, and that they should not be fearful and worrying about Kristaps Porziņģis at this very moment. But going into next season, depending on how many games Kristaps Porziņģis plays this year, depending how his recovery is with his injury, I think it is the perfect time to look to address a Kristaps Porziņģis trade in the offseason. If we want to look at Kristaps Porziņģis' contract for the Boston Celtics, we can see that Kristaps Porziņģis is on a 2-year deal right now with 1 year left after this year before he becomes a free agent. And next year, he makes a $30 million deal. Therefore, the Celtics could use that $30 million on Kristaps Porziņģis' contract to gouge the trade market with some draft capital attached to be able to move Kristaps Porziņģis to a contending team while still getting back some defensive pressure and still getting back a still quality center while shedding some salary and maybe dropping a little bit down that apron while still trying to manage some of their other young players looking for extensions, signing possibly Al Horford back, bringing Luke Kornet back, looking at that whole Jaden Springer stuff if he's still under contract. But ultimately, I personally believe that's what the Celtics are going to do. And if that Kristaps Porziņģis conversation does come to a crossroad, I do believe it will become in the offseason, and I don't think we'll have to worry about it this season. But Brad could get antsy, could see and witness to pull the trigger, and ultimately want to make a move to ensure that the Celtics repeat as champions and could go through with it. But I wanted to kind of break it down as it was something I saw on Twitter from two creators, and I wanted to kind of break it down. I also, a lot of other people on Celtics Twitter have been talking and been having all loads of other conversations. I want to know your guys' thoughts because some people, including myself, are a little bit frustrated that the Celtics have lost, but ultimately I'm not that worried as I think this team, like I said, is just going through some rough patches, and I ultimately truly do think that in the Eastern Conference, there's no team that can match up with this squad at this very moment at even with Kristaps Porziņģis dealing with these injuries in the East going into the playoffs. I still do think the Celtics need some minor moves around the edges, but necessarily not a big dramatic move. But let me know what you guys ultimately think down below in the comment section, how you guys ultimately feel about this Celtics team, and let me know what you guys think on this whole Kristaps Porziņģis situation. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics. Peace out, everyone.